Okay, and so we finished the second part or the module, which is about the backend, about how do you serve and saving data. Now we come back to the front end now. So in the first part of the module, we talk about creating front end, mostly focusing on using a framework called the Vue. Now we're going to talk a little bit more now into more advanced and topics in Vue, but other concepts like and progressive web apps. So it's still a web app, but it almost behaves like a normal mobile app in the sense you can say works very well on the phone and you can install them. You can even potentially add them to say Google Play or App Store. And we're not going to cover the last part, say how they add it to say Google Play or App Store, but we just want to cover the basics in terms of how to make progressive web apps. Okay, and so what is a progressive apps? And it uses the modern web APIs. So these are the things that's now available in the browser, and plus the traditional progressive enhancement strategy. And so that means, and you try to retrieve. Anyway, I'm gonna come back to that a bit later, and it allows you to create something cross-platform. So this means not just on the desktop, but also works on the mobile phones as well. Yeah, and so it works everywhere, desktop, mobile phones, tablet, or everything else, or anything else in between the two. Okay, and it can offer, I would say, almost the same type of user experience and as native apps. Not entirely, but the difference is very small, and I'm going to show you later on. You probably will not be able to notice the difference if you don't look very carefully. Okay, and so in terms of advantage as a web app, it's easy and fast to visit a website than installing the application. So basically, if you need to use the app itself, you don't have to say go searching the Google Play or App Store, and you just need the URL, and you can start using it straight away. And so the same thing, you can share it just with a link. So if you want someone else to use the same app as you just need to send them an URL or a link. Okay, and as in terms the and how do I say the advantages as a native app, so it can be installed locally, so you can add it to home screen. You'll have a button or an icon on your home screen. This is talking about the phone, so almost as any other native apps. And it works offline, so to a certain extent, and obviously everything you needed to display the front end and can be cached locally, so they will work offline. But for example, anything that requires a backend, for example, and if you need to submit order, then that order has to be sent and confirmed by the, say, the server or the saved to the database. Those parts, and it doesn't work offline. But it's the same for the native apps. And even for the many native apps, their features will not work when it's completely offline, when it cannot contact server. So it's the same situation. Okay, so there's some other additional benefit, and it's discoverable in the sense it can be found by search engines. So people, if typing something in Google search engine, and it will detect it almost like you would detect a website and returned in one of the search results. Okay, yeah, so this is what the progressive part comes in. So it's progressive in the sense it's support all the browsers as well, and in this, but it not be fully functional. Some more advanced features will not work on the older browsers. And for instance, if you're running a very old version of Internet Explorer on a desktop or an old Android version on your phone or tablet, and some of the features might not be working fully, but you should be still able to use the app as the main functions of the app. And obviously, if you have the latest version, you would be able to enjoy all the features. And so it's responsive, so it should be able to adapt to the different display sizes. And the way to achieve this is actually just using the responsive design in CSS. So I think this is probably doing better than some of the actual native apps. Usually they have to be designed for a fixed size. For example, I think for most of the Android apps, they're not designed for tablet. So on the tablet, they just got a very kind of expanded or enlarged version of the mobile app, which is not always very nice. Okay, and then it is quite safe in the sense it's using this new and network protocol called HTTPS. And I'm not sure if you can see here. And for example, most URL address, I don't have any good ones. I'm not sure if you can see, if you're typing a URL, at least in Chrome, and this icon before the URL indicates whether the connection is secure or not. In this case, it has a lock. That means it is secure. And say it's told you the connection is secure and something else. So this is using the new protocol called HTTPS. So that's one of the requirements for PWA Pro or for progressive web apps to make sure it is actually secure. And okay, and just go through some examples of and quite kind of popular PWAs or progressive web apps. And so there's something called Twitter Lite. So there's like a one of the front end or client made by Twitter. It's a PWA. So this is usually what a PWA would look like. And so you go to URL and it will recognize this is a PWA and it will give you the option to add this to home screen. And if you click that and you give this prompt, and if you click, then you can see this is get add onto your home screen, which says Twitter. Looks just as any other things. Native apps. Some of these can be native apps, some can be PWAs. And then the next time we just need to click that button to start the app. So Twitter is one of the examples, and Pinterest and Starbucks is a very American thing, and also Tinder. Okay. And so in our cases, so we're gonna try to make the pet store into a PWA. So we have been using this pet store examples so far. So we have created the front and back end for the pet store. So now we just need to turn that into PWA. Hmm. Okay, so once you turn into PWA, you should be able to install it locally and definitely on the phone. I think maybe be able to install on your and say Windows system as well. And would add a shortcut to the screen and it will work offline. Let me see if I can have that installed on my phone. I don't remember if I had a link somewhere now. So basically, once you turn your app into a PWA, if you host it online, for example, on a GitHub pages, then anyone visiting that web page would have the options to install it on their phone or device. Let me see if I can. I think I created one already. My repositories. Yes. Okay. And yeah. Okay. And so this is my PWA version of the web store or progressive web apps version of the web store. That's the pet store. And So not particularly nice, and I didn't really do any much formatting. For example, now you just look at a list of products and you can go check out and fill out these information just as before. These are all the same. And so basically the change is you don't really have to change much in terms of the functions related to the app itself, how do you display things, how do you fill out the forms, and just need to add a few modifications and it should work. And but also now, and this is on my Mac, you would have this option, and I'm not sure if you can see the text. It's very small. It says install my pet store PWA, so you can actually install that. If I click, it will ask you, do you want to install? I can click install, and assume it will be okay. Now it actually runs like this, and on my Mac. Maybe it will have a icon somewhere as well, not in the desktop. I can see. Where did it go? Okay, and okay, and I'll also just do a quick demonstration, and I'm gonna show that, and using my phone. So how it looks like gonna be on my phone. So to do this, I just need to first and share the screen of my phone using Zoom. I need to allow sharing. Okay, let me just join the meeting first. Ah, give me a second. I need to. The meeting ID. Where can I get the meeting ID? How do I join my own meeting?
So it's 340, 362.
Okay, okay. And hang on, can you say it again?
40
340
362
362
7960.
7960. Okay. Okay. Uh, you have logged in from another device. Your polling session. Okay. And so I'm gonna stop sharing here, and then I'm gonna share it and on my phone. Let me see, how do you share here? Share screen start in. Okay, and so you should be able to see my phone now, right? Phone
Yeah.
screen. Yeah. Okay. So what you need to do the first time is just go visit the link, the same link as before. Ah, I turned that off. Let me just find the link first. Maybe I can. I think it's probably faster. Let me just find the URL link. Or maybe we'll just do on close. Not very useful. Okay, I got the URL now. So I'm gonna use. I'm gonna open a new window. I'm using maybe using Chrome, or if that doesn't work, I'm gonna use Firefox. Let me close a few things. And I'm gonna type in the URL. I mean, you could do that too because it's the URL everybody can access. MDX and .github.io. Yeah. I don't even think I need the PWA part. Okay, so that's kind of the URL of the GitHub pages where I put the PWA code and I click. Okay, and so now the import, so that's what you see. It looks better actually on the phone compared to on the screen because it's not really optimized. And except the button is quite small. You should be able to see a checkout button is really small here. Okay, and the thing is at the bottom of the screen, you can see add pet store to home screen because it detects it's PWA. And so you can just say, click that, and it says install app, ask you, do you want to install? And you click install. Now it should be added to my home screen. And then if I go back, you can see this one here now called pet store, the last one, is the one we just installed. So next time, if you want to open this, you just need to click that icon. That's what it looks like. You have a splash screen which you can customize, and then you just have the store itself. The rest is the same. For example, I can choose add to cart, this thing, and then if I go to the cart, checkout page, it does not display here yet, and that part is not implemented. Okay, and I just can demonstrate very quickly. If I turn off everything, so I now turn off the Wi-Fi, or it doesn't show there, and then turn off the mobile data. So that means it's okay, or maybe just turn down the airplane mode, which turns off everything. Ah, it's not moving anymore.
If you scroll up, maybe we can see the.
No, I'd already closed the control
Uh,
panel or the setting, but on my phone, but on the shared screen is still stuck with the old one.
yeah.
Because
Okay.
You can stop.
Of course, I can't do that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I know what happened is because if I turn off the network connection, then it can't share the screen anymore. Okay. And so I was going to try to demonstrate. So the app would still works even when there's no network connection. But obviously, I can't do that if I turn off the network screen and you can't see it. Okay. But you just have to and believe in me now. So even if I turn off the network connection, the app will still work. Okay.
We believe you, sir.
Now you can try yourself. You can install the app on your phone. Open it. The URL is maybe a bit small there. Uh, and if you install that on your phone, it should still work. Okay. I don't need my phone now. Okay. And so you could try it on yourself, and that's the URL you can install and then disable the network connections on your phone, and you should be able to see it still work. So at least the display of the pictures and all these buttons would work, but when you actually need to check out and place an order, it will not actually be able to send any, say, the order to backend servers, because if there's no network connection, that part cannot be done. Okay, and come back to the lecture itself. So we're going to show you how to turn the pet store examples and into a PWA. Okay, and this is the old and pet store example. And in the head section, that's what it looks like. It's loading the view. It's loading the actual list of the products from an external file called product.js. Okay, and that's the sum of the products. So just in case you forgot it. And maybe it'll be easier if I just open up the actual code in the Visual Studio Code so you can see examples.
So are we not listing the products from MongoDB this time?
Sorry, say it again.
Are we not listing the products again from MongoDB?
Oh, no. And yes. And so this is just for demonstration in the lessons. So for in the class to demonstrate how PWA works. So we're not using, say, connect to the MongoDB part and to show the lessons. Just make it a bit easier. And so basically, you don't need to change any part of the code which actually loads data in terms if you just want to make it a PWA. But actually, I think for you probably want to still keep your, say, your fetch code and in your PWA, sorry, in your front end to do this.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. It's a bit slow. Okay, and so this is just to show you what the file looks like before we add anything. And so that was the old HTML files we used. And so you have all these information, maybe just the previous slides. So in the top, it shows that's the title. We loaded the view library. We try to load the data from an external source. That's basically where we stopped at the end of the first part when we prepare for the first coursework. If you open the product, you have these things. So that's why when you run it in your browser, it would look like this, and which is very similar to what we showed as the PWA itself. Okay, and so that's the data. As someone asked already, say now you probably have the backend all set up. So this will probably saved in the database, and you're going to retrieve this through your Node or Express server. Okay, and similarly for the actual view code part, nothing really changed either. We don't really need to change any of these. So if we go to the view part of the code, there's quite a bit. Okay, so you would have the products, and this will be the product now loading from the external file. In your case, you might loading from the backend. MongoDB, you have the cart, which saves what people added to your shopping cart, and some details about orders and states. That's for the form. And in the method section, we still have the same functions as before. Say add to cart, show checkout, which between the product list and checkout and other functions. Okay. So this is just to give you a quick review of what was there before. And then now we're going to start actually to make some changes. Okay, this is still about displaying the products. And so it's using v4 to go through everything in the sorted product, which is an array, which sorted what is already available by certain attributes. And you can do this. So basically, each of the v4 generate one of these products. Okay, and also I add a tiny bit of formatting just to make it look slightly better on the phone. So this is nothing about responsive at all because it's not really change depends on the size of the screen. So it's just very standard CSS. Add a little bit of border, so make the border visible. Now it's 1 pixel wide. It's gray in color. So that's this border you can see here, this little. And then add a little bit of padding and makes text line center. That's all. So for each of these things, so the text is aligned in the center. You have a little bit of space between the text pictures and the borders. That's all it does. Okay. Okay. And so I'll maybe just show you quickly, and I'll try to do this in the live coding. So I'm going to make a no. I'm gonna just call this one demo. Can I put it under week 18? It doesn't want to go there. Okay, I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'll try to copy the previous examples in there without any code for the PWA. So that's where we're gonna start. Let me get that version here. Okay, hopefully, let's. Let me put them here. Okay, so you should see some files now. So these are the two files we just copied from before. And the pet depot and the actual list of products. So these are the ones which doesn't have any code in that yet, in terms for PWA. So you can see if I open this one in the browser, it's still opening the other file. I need to opening this file. Okay. So that's what it looks like. And just listing the product without the borders or the centering. Currently the picture is missing because it needs the image files. So I need to copy that over as well. Okay, so add the pictures now to the folder. So this one, if I refresh, still didn't have the images. Let me have a quick look of the, okay. I think it just, the path here needs to be updated. Images, product full size, PNG, images. It doesn't have that file. That's why. Yeah, that should work. And need to change this, and change one last one. And to find out where the first one is not here, cat house, cat litter, laser, yarn, cat food. Okay, that's called cat food.
Images as well, sir.
Sorry?
Images. Images / cat food.
Ah, yes, of course. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna just probably start from this version without any CSS formatting, which I think should be okay to do. Okay. Let's close this one, don't need this one. Okay. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to create something called a Web Manifesto File. And so essentially that's like a JSON file you just need to create. Maybe in a sense it's similar to package.json file. Okay, and it's required to make to make the PWA, the browser would check if that file exists. So if it doesn't, it will not allow it to become a PWA. And the other thing is have to be served from a HTTPS connection. So this is not something you can do in your code. This is depends on the server you are using to host your pages or the files. And in our example, we're going to be using GitHub Pages. So GitHub Pages itself provides HTTPS connection by default. So we can tick that box straight away. Okay, and you need an icon to represent the app on the device. So that's a requirement. So this is the thing which you will saw after you installed it. It should show up on your, say, home screen. You need a picture, which will be the icon that you use when that's installed on the home screen. Okay, and the last part is you need a service worker registered to make the app works offline. So the service worker is kind of the thing that responsible to save the files locally, for example, the pictures or different products. So it will work even when there's no network connection. And so currently, and sometimes the browser might do that, might cache the files, so it will still display the page from the, when the network is disconnected. But that's no guarantee, you have no control. Whereas service worker, you will be sure the file, it will be there if there's no, even if there's no internet connection. Okay, and so these are the 4 things you need to make any web app into a PWA. It doesn't have to be Vue. It could be plain JavaScript or any other frameworks. So these are the 4 things. So we already ticked the second one because if we host it on GitHub Pages that already provided the HTTPS connection. So we're going to just look at the other 3, the manifest and the icon and the service worker. Excuse me. And this service worker is probably the most complicated ones, but we're going to start with the Web Manifesto File. So it lists all the information about PWA in a JSON format, and it needs to rest or reside in the root folder of the web app. So if we look at our web app, so it should at the same level as the other files. In our case is HTML and the JavaScript file. That's where that should be. Okay, and it includes information like the app's name, so what that will be displayed, and the path to different sized icons. So you can have more than one icon, and in your kind of set of files, and each icon for different size. So there's a minimum size I can remember, maybe 32 pixels wide, and by 32 pixels, and you can go all the way to say 512 pixels. Okay, and you can also set the background color when you're starting the app. For example, I set it to red, so when you had the splash screen, it loads a red color, and then many other things. But these are the more common ones you need. Okay, so the Web Manifest file should have this as your extension. So .web manifest. So that's like the official way. But if you just save it as .json, that also works. And in most cases, the browser would still be loaded anyway. But we're gonna just call it web manifest. Just follow the standard. And finally, and once you created the file, you need to link it in the head section of your HTML file, just as you would link, say, a CSS or even JavaScript. You still use the link tag. The difference now is the relationship with REL now would say manifest. So for CSS, it will be CSS. Other types will be different. Just have to say manifest. And then you put the file name or the path to the file here in href and attributes. This is the same as before. Okay, and so we're gonna create one now. So what I'll do is well, let me make this slightly bigger. So I need to create a new file, and I'm gonna enter here. I create a file and called petstore.web manifest. You still put it under images. Let me move this one here. Okay, so it's opened. And as we said, this will be a JSON file. And these are some things that you can put in. And so you need a name. I'm gonna call it, okay. And pet store, PWA. And then short name is optional. And you don't need to. But we're gonna put one there. Pet store. Okay. The short name is actually the name that's gonna appear under the home screen icon. So if you remember, every apps on your home screen would have some text below it. So that's what the short name will be. So I can put description, say my online pet store. Okay, and then the icons part is required. Oh, so and then the value of the icon is usually an array because we said you can give it and many different image sizes, different sizes of the same icon, and then the app can choose when to use what. And in this case, we're gonna just provide one. So first you just tell it where the picture is. It's under the images directory. It's called icon 512.png. Okay, let's see if we have that file or not. Okay, we called an icon store 512 png. So this will be our icon. So icon store 512 png. I need to tell it the size is 512 times 512. And the finally type will be image, and in this case we are PNG files. Yeah, I mean you could have more than one. For example, in this case we have two files. We had another file called icon store -32 PNG. So we can add that in the web manifest as well. So this is 32, 32, and 32. And you can have other sizes like 64, 128, 256. You can provide as many as you can, but you need at least one. That's the minimum you need. Okay, and The next one is the start URL. And this is like the page that is supposed to load. If you have more than multiple HTML files, you need to know which one to load. Actually, in our case, this has to be called path.depo2.html. That's actually the files. If you can see, that's these files that will be loaded. Okay, and display. Okay, we want to go full screen. So this works mostly for the phone. So if you run the app on the phone, it will go into the full screen mode and make it look like a native app. Otherwise, actually, you will see it's actually essentially running in a browser. Okay, and finally, background, color. Okay, and so this is the colors you pick for your app. And again, it's completely up to you. You can set a background color for your app. Okay, so now I can save this now. So I created. So I think this one name is compulsory. You definitely need the icon. You need to know, tell it where to start. The other things are optional, but it's good there so you can customize appearance of your app. Okay, then once we save this, we can start to open the files and in the browser. And so currently you would not see anything yet. So for example, yeah, that's the file. If I refresh, and you can just see as before, nothing changed. So, but if you open up the developer tools and go to application and then manifest, so you should be able to see the pastor.web manifest get loaded there, because you're going to detect this is a web manifesto file associated with this app. Okay, and then there will be some other information below, which is what you set in the file. For example, the start URL, background color, etc., etc., or even the icons. Okay, so if we go, actually try here, I'm gonna open up my developer tools. I'm gonna put it on this side. Oops, maybe the other side. Oh, maybe this side is fine. Let me make it a bigger. Okay, you go to application and then choose manifest. Oh, it says no manifest detected.
You
Do
save
we
the file?
need to state the manifest in the HTML page or something like a source?
Ah, yes, yes, of course. Yeah, I missed that part. Uh, very good point. And so I need actually to go back here. We need to actually tell it link, just do a normal link, and then the relationship will be manifest, and this will be pet store dot web manifest. Okay, now I just saved it, and the browser automatically refreshed it. And you can see now it's detected this file. Okay. Okay, and you have some errors and warnings. It says image icon does not specify its size in the manifest. Ah, okay. I did? Did I? Or should I do it?
Uh,
Yeah?
I think type images or images.png type.
S images, sir.
You need to add an S.
No, I don't think it's a type. It's here. It's complaining does not specify the size in the manifest. Okay, let's try. Let's try using images. Is that what he said?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Let's try. Gonna save. I would suspect that maybe the way I'm specifying the size here is not correct. Let me see what I did in the other one. Well, it seems to be just sizes. Maybe that's the one. You need a S here. Let me try again. Sizes. Okay, yeah. So that seems to be solves the problem. It has to be sizes instead of just size. Yeah, the types should just be image PNG. If I remove the S, okay. Yeah, that looks a bit better. So any issues will show up here, but you can see now it says identity name is pet store, short name pet store. That's what you said. Starting URL, background color, and you can recognize icon as well. So these are the two we provided in the file. This is the one that will be used. Okay, and you can see there's just one more message there. So no matching service worker detected. So that obviously we haven't added that yet, but that's the last criteria before the app would accept it as a PWA. Sorry, before the browser would accept the app as a PWA. So we've done all the other parts already. That's good. Okay, now we're going to move on to the service worker part. And so that's the only thing missing. So first, and service worker is an API in the browser that's supported by a browser. So it's like a location or video or some other APIs available in the browser. Okay, and it works as a virtual proxy between the browser and the network. Okay, so I didn't have a picture. So and without the service worker, the application talks to the internet, here says network directly. So if it needs to load a file, it will send a request to a server, and server might return the index.html plus some image files, and then the application receives those that get displayed. And then the service worker now becomes someone in the middle. So when the application tries to get a file from the internet server, for example, index.html, the request was sent, but it's going to pass through service worker first. So the service worker then has an opportunity to say, I may be able to check my cache, which is a set of files that's saved locally, to see if the file is there. And if the file is already inside the cache, for example, index.html, it will retrieve the file from the cache and give it back to the application. And if the file the application required is not in the cache, for example, it requires checkout.html, which is another HTML file that does not exist in the cache, and it will go to the internet, retrieve the file, and then return back to the application. And probably it will put that file into the cache as well, the second HTML file, which does not exist before. So next time you can get it from cache. Okay, and so this is the way how the service worker make the PWA work offline, because the files you need will be all saved in the cache, so you don't need the network to retrieve any new files. But also from the application side of it, there's no changes. say for this code running in the browser, it might not even aware there's a service worker there. It's still just sending its normal request and then process the response as it would otherwise without a service worker. Okay, and also there's a slightly kind of difference in terms of running service worker. So it runs on a separate thread and from the main JavaScript code. Okay, and can I actually see a quick show of hands? Does thread means anything to you? If you know what thread means here, can you click yes or raise your hand? Okay. Okay, so not everyone makes sense to everybody. Okay, and maybe I'll explain briefly. So you probably know now, and most of the CPUs, which is the heart of the computers or phones, has multiple cores. Like you probably heard, okay, this CPU has 4 cores, my phone has 8 cores, something like that. So that essentially means you have 8 CPUs which can run independently. Okay, and then so to do this, you can have to make full use of, say, multiple cores. You can have each core have a separate task to run, and this is called a thread. So for example, the first core is an running task of, say, retrieving the HTML file, and the second core is running task or drawing some symbols on the screen, etc., etc. So that's what, and here the thread means, and then the service worker will run on separate thread from the main JavaScript code. So that just basically means it runs in parallel, and the service worker thread and the JavaScript code, which is the browser JavaScript, does not talk to each other directly. That's mostly for safety reasons. So because service worker can do a lot of things, so they don't want to give it too much power, so restrict it from the main thread where the JavaScript code is running. For example, need to respond to, say, different user interactions. And the other reason is, say, the service worker can be doing something computationally heavy or have to wait. For example, if it needs to retrieve files from the remote server, it have to wait a while. And then you don't want to block it, the main interaction on your page. Okay, which we're gonna talk to that in a second. Anyway, and just to say, remember that the service worker don't have access to the DOM structure. And so basically you can't, inside the service worker, I want to say document get element by ID, something, something. That doesn't work because it does not get access to any elements on the page. Okay, and this is the other thing I mentioned early on. So, and the API is non-blocking because it's run in a separate thread. So the any user interaction needed for the browser itself can still run without being blocked by if the service worker is working. For example, the service worker might be trying to retrieve data or do some computation. And the way the service worked is very similar to fetch. It uses a promise-based approach. So you can tell the service worker only run some code after you receive the result. Okay, and this is the other thing. So it's only be executed in secure context. That means you must connecting to the server using HTTPS. Otherwise, you're not allowed to use service worker. Okay, and to do this, you need to first register a service worker, and this is inside the main HTML file. So you need this line of code. So basically it says if, so the navigator here refers to the browser, and then service worker is an API, and this one just says if the browser supports service worker, and then you register one, and you say navigator.serviceworker.register. And this will be the file where your actual code that service worker will run will be. So your actually service worker code will be in a separate file. And in this case, we call it service worker. And you can call it some other names, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then the browser, once this is successful, it will try to run the code inside the service worker. Sorry, service worker.js file. Okay, and so just do this quickly, what we said here. And so in the main file, and you need to register a service worker. So in the pet store here, and we need to put here somewhere the script which does it, and maybe I don't know, can I, let's just do it here. We're gonna create some simple script. So we say if service worker in navigator, I'm gonna do navigator dot service worker dot register. Okay, and then the actual file name, I'm gonna just call service worker.js. Again, as I said, the actual name is not critical. You can call file different names, and but here we just call it service worker. Okay, so then that's the other files we need to create. We just called service worker.js. Okay, so it's just a JavaScript file, but you put the code there that's needed for the service worker. Okay, and the first thing you need to do is, as we talked about before, one of the main job for the PWA is to create a cache where you save the files you needed so the app can be run offline. Okay, and then you need to first give it a name for the cache, because you can have multiple caches and you can even have different versions for the same set of files. Okay, so that's why we give it a name. So in here, cache name equal to pet store version 1. Okay, and then the next thing is to list all the files that you want to save in the cache. So you have to explicitly tell service worker which files you want to save locally. Okay, so that can be a little bit tedious, but you have to list all the files you want. And it depends. So this will be cache. But something you have to do just the first time when you create. In our case, we will need pet and depot2.html, and we need products.js. We still need that. Okay, we need the pet store.web manifest file. And there's a few more files. And because if we wanted the pictures for each product, we have to put them in the as well. So I have to say images, yarn.jpg, and then images. What else? Cat, litter. Okay, almost there. Images slash and cat house. Let me just make sure I'm typing the right thing. Yeah, cat house, cat litter. Images slash laser pointer. And did young cat food? No, not the cat food yet. Images cat food, and also the icon files as well. So it will be icon store 32. And 512. Okay, so now we listed all the files. Okay, sorry, goes back.
Catfood.png.
Sorry?
Catfood.png.
Ah, yes, yes, of course. Yeah, good point. Otherwise, probably this part is not gonna work. Yeah. Okay, and then now we have to actually write some code. So what we are doing now is that here. Then we're gonna tell the service worker to create a cache, which is this name, and that stores these list of files, right? So currently, so far, we just store the information in some variables, which we can refer to a little bit later. Okay. Okay, and then we're gonna add an event listener, and it will trigger all these code when the install it happens. That's basically install the register. Install the service worker and happens when it's being registered. And then okay, and then you have this wait until. So that's the things, and the service worker will run first before it install itself. Okay, let me just explain as I'm typing this in. I think it will be a bit faster. So you put these in here. So the self refers to the browser window itself. You add event listener. You want to listen to the install event. So when it will be triggered when you try to register it. And the E, I don't forgot now what that stands for. But that's something returned when you try to return by the window. When you listen to when the event is triggered, it will return an object called E. Here, the console log is just to tell you, for you to see, say the service worker is doing something, and service worker, it says this is the install part. When I try to install it, wait. Oh, it did not start automatically until. Okay, all it does, it just says I want to do whatever inside here first before you install the service workers. Okay, so I'm gonna cache. Okay, so the cache here is a predefined keyword, just refers to the caches available as part of the service worker or the browser. You can open now, followed by cache name. So this is the name we define here, cache name. Okay, again, this is a promise in the sense you have to wait and use then when it's finished, and then you will get a cache object. So once you opened a cache, the particular object will be returned. Okay, and then once you had the cache, okay, we still did. And this is just some message to show that it is working. So service worker. Cache and files, just going to be a shorter one. Okay, so this is actually the line, and this line here is where you actually add the files to the cache. Add all. Okay, so here the cache files is what we define here, this array. So you'll try to cache all these files and save them in your local cache. Okay, and you run a return here. So this will finish, and then you can go back to the install. Okay. Yeah. So the caches, which is this one here, and it's a special cache storage, and just something like a local storage or session storage. And this is something you can check in the browser later on, which we'll see. Okay. And then we'll have a new cache called pet store one. Again, you can see that in the developer tools later. And then finally, this line would add all the files to the cache. Okay, so now if we refresh the page here, ooh, we have an error here. Failed to execute cache on add all request failed. Ooh. Caches dot open.
The line 13, I think it's not closed.
Which line? Sorry?
Line 13.
13. I don't think that will be the problem. You mean like no semicolon at the end?
Yeah.
No, semicolon is optional, and you. Oh, really? No, it's still the same. Failed to execute cache. Request failed. Maybe it's being blocked, I think. Let me try if it's just to make sure it's not caused by any. Okay, so I'm using this cognito window in the sense it will disable any extensions you might installed that might interfere. Okay, console. Okay, there's no error here now. Application. It says no matching service worker detected. Let me just double check everything. So we have here, we linked pet store. Let me check if I missed anything. Could look at the other file.
Kai, Stas said that you are running on HTTP. It's supposed to be on HTTPS.
Yes, could be. That's right. But I think it should still work locally. It will allow you. And so this is the, how do I say, and this is the screenshot when that's working properly. You can actually see, and this is running again from live server, localhost 5500, and it's actually using HTTP, not using HTTPS. So
Yes.
Chrome made the exception, say if it's not HTTPS, if it's locally, still let you run. So must be something else I missed. Uncaught, type error. Line 1 in service worker. Okay, so what we can see is it goes, these two messages get displayed. So that means it actually run all the way to here already. And that's when it had the problems. It's the cache object dot at all add all request failed. Okay, let me look at the other example to see if I can. Pat add event listener install wait until. Don't think there's any difference here. Okay, and just because we are running out of time, let me see if I just copy over this file, see if it solves all the problem. Gonna go. Okay, so I made a copy of the other one I made earlier. Huh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I've just Googled it, and it says that sometimes it doesn't work just because some files are not accessible.
Ah.
Make sure all the cache files are accessible.
Mhm.
That's probably one of the reasons.
Okay. This is in the demo folder. That's the example. Did I misspell anything? See all the. Index.html, product.js. So currently I'm using the one which I knew works in the other example, and you still
You're
have
not
the...
using index.html though. You're using petdepot2.html.
Yes, that
There's
shouldn't
no index.
affect.
You haven't got index.html in it. That's why it doesn't work.
It's pet depot 2 HTML.
Okay, this one, yeah, this one have to pet. Well, okay. I mean, it was using pet depot 2 here, so it must be something else. I can't really see what's the difference here and here.
You see the file, the images yarn.jpg?
Uh-huh.
In the previous file, you go yar without n at the end. There it is. That's why it wasn't working. 1.6.
Is that? Huh? But that's probably not correct. Maybe that's the reason. Is it? Okay. Okay, let me change this one back to see if that's the reason. Service worker. So this is the copied one. I'm gonna call it 3 now. I'm gonna change the 2, which is this was the one we created. So we spotted this young error here. Service work JS. Yay! Okay, now there's no oops. No. There is something else. It's still giving the error. So potentially it's because some of the file names I typed in here is not correct or not even there. Cat house. Okay, and just because of time, and we're gonna just use the other one because we knew that worked. I didn't know exactly. So as I said, it's possibly because one of the file names I typed was not correct. Okay, and if we go back to the application part, okay, now you can see there's no more errors. Everything is there. That means it's recognized this as a, say, an proper PWA. Then you can just deploy somewhere. Okay. Okay. Wow. We are running out of time. Yeah. Okay. And then you can see the cache the files, and just in the cache storage. So again, that's in the develop tools, just a different option on the sidebar, and you can see the files that are being saved there. Just here, if you go cache storage, if you expand, you should see this one called pet store version 1, which is the names we given there, and you would see all the files and get saved there. Oh, it's actually saved a lot. I mean, you could always just delete it, and once you rerun the page, it should refill the cache. Huh? Oops. But why the page itself isn't? Oh. Okay. This is weird. And anyway, the files should be here. And you could clean it. And usually when you refresh the page, it should give you the app back. Okay. I'm gonna just use the other one I had. Oh, wrong one. I had before. Huh, now this one has errors. What happened? Okay. So yeah, now the examples. So now this is the I'm running the index.html, and it has the same error as before now. Application, the cache storage. Okay, but it actually caches everything in there. Say examples, images of the files. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what happened. Okay, and so just got 5 minutes. I want to cover the rest, a few more slides. And so now we have the files saved locally as this one inside the cache. So we want to use them. So when the next time you reload the page, you want them to load the files from the cache instead of retrieving from the server. And it will allow this app to start faster and also allow it to work offline because you don't have to download the files anymore. Okay, and the way to do this, you need to intercept fetch requests. So when the front-end code, the HTML file, try to access load some files, or even loading the HTML files itself, you want them to redirect them to the cache instead of retrieving it from the server. Okay, so you need to add a little bit extra code into your service worker, because the service worker can do the work to intercept the fetch request and then return the files from the cache instead of getting them from the server. Okay, and so that's this line is for. And so in this example, it's already added there. So you will see here. So it's still self.add event listener. So when there's a fetch action from the browser where you need to retrieve, for example, index.html, and that's a console log just to say it's going to do something. And so what you need to do is say dot, again, this is the E object you get returned, and you say respond with. So basically these are the things you can respond. And then you have the caches, again, that's this thing here. Say dot match e dot request. So this one, e dot request, will give the URL of the files you are requesting. And then if you find that in your cache, that's what this says, then you do these things, right? So if you find this one, then you have this R, which is the return, which is the files that you're requesting. And so you can type some messages, says the service worker is now fetching the resources, and you're actually returning that files that will be sent back to the browser as a response. So that's what this part does. Okay. And so let me try, but I think this one, this index.html doesn't work either now. If I refresh the page and the console, if I click everything, no. And if I, oh, now this time it has no error. That's weird. And I've refreshed again. Oh, I didn't see the output in terms of retrieving things from the cache. Okay, and that's the other thing. That's interesting. And so, and you actually should see some error messages because say the view file and will not be there. Ah, okay, okay. So this only, you get this message, error message, when you run the refresh the page in the offline mode, which you can do by disabling the network connection. So if you go to the network tab and you choose offline, and then the page will load as if there's no internet connection. And if we refresh, it will, it still loads a console log. Preserve log filter. Application. Okay, okay. And so here you can see it's actually already cached the view files already for you. So it automatically adds any missing files, even I didn't list it, it's get added here. But if before the view file was added and you were disconnected, and when you try to load the files, you will get error message because this view file and from this web URL, we need to run any view command. It's not in the cache. Okay, and so then you can add, of course, a few lines and to caching any other missing files. And so, okay, so up to here is what we covered so far. And here is to add new files to the cache if it's missing. And because when we run and this page example, it already has this code in there, so it automatically cache the missing view file and these say font awesome file in there as well. So we're gonna just have a quick look at what this does. So up to here is all fine. So you can find the files in your cache, then you return R, and otherwise, so this is what all here for, you can do an actual fetch with the same URL from the server. So now you actually not try to get the file from the server, and then you add the file to the new cache when it's returned. So this is your response from the server. You say caches.open cache name. That's the same as before when we first cache all the files. You open the cache and you say cache.put e.request and response.clone. Okay, and so you put inside the cache the URL of the request so that it knows when to return the file, and here you make a copy of your return and save there. And so then you return the actual response to the app. Hope that makes sense. I'll try to explain again. So this is actually connecting the remote server to get the file. So once you get the response back, which is the actual file, you open your local cache and then you put in the new files into your cache together with the URL. So this is the URL of the file and this is the actual file. But you don't put the actual file, you make a copy of it. And then finally, you return to the browser the files you retrieved from the server. And this will be, say, the view.js or something else. Okay, and this is happens, and you should see these files, which we didn't add initially in our list, will be in there. Ah, okay, yeah. You can also test the service worker in this offline mode. I think it does similar thing. Let's give it a go. So we're gonna do online here. Let's go to applications, service worker. You can testing offline. Yeah, so obviously because everything is now cached. If I remove a file, for example, this one, and I want to test again. Ah, still not complaining. Okay, and yeah. So and now it's all working, and you can upload it to GitHub Pages. And the GitHub Pages itself providing HTTPS connection, so other people can download it, and you have all the other strict requirements as well in terms and manifest, icon, and service worker. Okay, and I kind of demonstrate this one at the beginning of already. So if you open up the page in your browser, in this case on my phone, you would add this option. In the browser, it's Chrome is somewhere here on the desktop, and you choose install, and it will install something like this. When you start up, it looks like this with a splash screen. The color is the background color you choose a little bit earlier on. Okay, and that's all. So we covered everything we needed for the PWA. And in terms of reading, this is the Mozilla Development Network, which tells you how to make progressive web apps, which is covers something very similar to what we did today. Okay, that's it.
So the GitHub pages, is it the front